Okay, let's dive right into one of the Bible's weirdest and most enduring mysteries. We're talking about just a few short verses that have kicked off thousands of years of debate, wild speculation, and honestly, some pretty amazing ancient fan fiction. We are, of course, talking about the Nephilim. It all starts right here in Genesis chapter 6, and this one little verse is just packed with bizarre phrases, like, who are the sons of God, and who are the daughters of humans? And most importantly, what in the world were the Nephilim? It's a classic biblical mystery, right? There's just enough detail to just you totally hooked, but not nearly enough to actually solve the puzzle. And that, my friends, is where the real fun begins. So, what are we really looking at here? Are we talking about literal, honest-to-goodness giants? The monstrous offspring of fallen angels? Or is this whole thing just a metaphor for something a lot more human? Like, say, a line of corrupt kings mixing with commoners? To even begin to figure that out, we've got to go back to the very beginning. First up, we are going straight to the source, the book of Genesis. We need to decode what the original text actually says and see what clues might be hiding in the ancient Hebrew itself. And our first huge clue is right there in the name, Nephilim. It comes from the Hebrew root word nepal, which literally means to fall. And that one simple word is what kicks off the entire central debate. So on one hand, you see a word that means to fall, and you might think, okay, the fallen ones. Maybe this is about a moral fall, a fall from grace. But the earliest translators went in a completely different direction. When they translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, in a version we now call the Septuagint, they didn't pick a word meaning fallen. Nope, they chose the word gigantes, which, yeah, you guessed it. That's exactly where we get our word giants. And this whole giant interpretation gets a massive boost from the only other place in the Torah where the Nephilim get a name drop, in the book of Numbers. Israelite spies are scouting out the land of Canaan, and they come back absolutely terrified. Why? Because they saw the Nephilim. And think about it, you don't say you feel like a grasshopper next to somebody because they're morally questionable. You say it because they are physically, terrifyingly huge. But there is a third theory, one that's way less supernatural. It's often called the Sephite view, and this theory argues that this has nothing to do with angels at all. The sons of God in this view were the good guys, the descendants of Adam's righteous son, Seth. The daughters of men? They were from the line of Cain, the first murderer. So their intermarriage was the fall from grace, this mingling of holy and unholy bloodlines that corrupted the world. So in this view, the problem wasn't supernatural, it was entirely human. For centuries, that's pretty much where the debate was, until the rediscovery of a very old book that took those few mysterious verses in Genesis and just blew them up into this sweeping, epic tale of cosmic rebellion. Let me introduce you to the Book of Enoch. Now, it was written centuries after Genesis, and it's what we call non-canonical, meaning it's not official scripture for most Jews and Christians today. But back in ancient times, whoa, this book was a huge deal, and it's our best window into how people back then actually understood the Nephilim story. You can almost think of it as the ultimate ancient fan fiction, filling in all the juicy details Genesis left out. So according to Enoch, the sons of God were a specific group of angels called the Watchers, and a group of 200 of them, led by an angel named Semjaza, saw human women from heaven, lusted after them, and made a pact to go down and take them as wives. And their children? Those were the Nephilim, violent, ravenous giants who just devoured everything. But they didn't just create chaos with brute force. They also taught humanity things they were never, ever supposed to know. And the kind of forbidden knowledge they taught is just fascinating. This wasn't some abstract philosophy. We're talking about the arts of civilization, just twisted. An angel named Azazel taught humanity how to forge weapons, which led to war. He also taught them about cosmetics, which was seen as a kind of deception. They taught magic, astrology, even spells to make people hate each other. In this version of the story, the corruption of the world wasn't just humanity's fault. It was a direct result of this angelic rebellion. But maybe the most influential, and honestly the most chilling idea to come out of the Book of Enoch was about what happened after the Nephilim died in the Great Flood. The book says their giant bodies were destroyed, sure, but their spirits, because they were born of this unholy union of heaven and earth, were trapped here. These disembodied spirits, they became demons, the evil forces that would plague humanity forever. This is a complete, detailed origin story for demonic evil, and it shaped religious thinking for centuries to come. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a wild story, but it's from some fringe book, right? Well, not exactly. The ideas from the Book of Enoch didn't just vanish. They left their textual DNA all over later religious texts, sometimes in really surprising places. For example, take a look at this quote from the New Testament book of Jude. It's describing the final judgment, the Lord coming with his holy army. It seems like a pretty standard apocalyptic image. But where did the author of Jude get this very specific phrasing? Well, he got it straight from the Book of Enoch. This quote is pulled almost word for word right out of the first chapter. I mean, look at that. The phrasing is practically identical. And this is the key takeaway here. This is not some subtle hint or a little nod. The author of Jude directly quotes the Book of Enoch and even names Enoch as the source. This is proof positive that the earliest Christians didn't just know about these stories of fallen angels and giants, they took them seriously enough to use them in their own sacred writings. These themes even pop up in the Quran, but with a really fascinating twist. The Quran tells of two angels, Harut and Marut, who came to Babel and taught magic to mankind. But here's the huge difference. In the Quran, the angels say explicitly, "We are only a temptation." They aren't rebelling, they haven't fallen, they're part of a divine test for humanity. And get this, they taught spells specifically to cause division between man and wife, which sounds a whole lot like those hate-inducing charms we just saw in Enoch. And instead of literal giants, the Quran often uses the idea as a powerful metaphor. It describes the tyrannical people of Ad as Jabbarin, a word that's very closely related to the Hebrew Giborim, which Genesis used for the Nephilim. But here, it doesn't mean they were physically huge. It means they were tyrants, arrogant, full of hubris, and challenging the divine order, doing exactly what the Nephilim did. And that, of course, brings us to the modern day, where the Nephilim have become the subject of endless conspiracy theories and pretty sensational claims online. So let's take a second to separate the actual story from all that modern speculation. Because this is the question everyone asks eventually. If there were really giants roaming the earth, where are the bones? Where is the archaeological proof? The answer is simple and direct. No. Despite the countless internet hoaxes and photoshopped images you may have seen, there has never been a single credible discovery of giant humanoid fossils that would support the Nephilim story as a literal biological event. Period.
And that's because we've probably been asking the wrong question all along. The power of the Nephilim story isn't about whether it's a literal history. It's a profound myth. It's an ancient attempt to answer one of humanity's oldest, biggest questions. Why is the world so broken? Why is there so much evil? And this story provides a powerful answer. It says that evil isn't just a simple human flaw. It's the result of a cosmic rebellion, a shattering of the sacred boundaries between heaven and earth that unleashed chaos into our world.
Which really leaves us with one final thought. From ancient scriptures to modern movies and video games, this story of fallen angels, powerful giants, and forbidden knowledge just continues to captivate us. So the real question is, why? Why does this ancient myth about cosmic rebellion and the origins of evil still hold such an incredible power over the human imagination?